I bet you didn't know the secrets of the scribe of Saint Exile. I bet you'll never know the secrets of the scribes of Saint Exile. Aaron Lucas was a mystery. He walked the sacred halls of the Order of Saint Exile, a silent observer in a world drowned in its own echoes. Aaron was a historian, a chronicler of forgotten truths. He was also an apostle, a guardian of the Order's ancient wisdom. Yet he longed for recognition, for a voice amidst the deafening silence of his peers. He sought comfort in words, meticulously documenting the Order's history and his own introspective journeys. With his words, Aaron danced on his notes, painting ever more vivid pictures of an empire sure of its decline. He wrote about the consensus, the union of powerful corporations now fractured, dissolved, and scattered. He detailed the Order's precarious neutrality during the tumultuous fall of the consensus, a silence that, faced with Titan's brutal repression of the poorly armed and disorganized colonies, had ostracized them in the eyes of many, but which had nevertheless led them to the head of the empire and to power. His writings described the 5 incursions as major events that marked critical turning points in the history of the empire and the entire system. The Order's library was his sanctuary, a labyrinth of knowledge guarded by towering shelves and the ghosts of forgotten cultures. Here, amidst the smell of dust and knowledge, Aaron found comfort. He immersed himself in forgotten texts, his mind absorbing the wisdom of bygone eras like a sponge. He wrote about heroes long gone, about battles won and lost, about the rise and fall of civilizations. His only companions, old authors long forgotten. It was a solitary existence, but Aaron was used to solitude. Yet, Aaron kept writing, he wrote, driven by an insatiable thirst for knowledge and the hope of perhaps finally making a discovery. Aaron could try to dissuade himself, but didn't he dream of adventure? He was about to be heard. What's something people don't know about the fall of the consensus? What people don't know about the fall of the consensus? The Order of Saint Exile was born from the crumbling, proud remains of a political system and a bygone era. They were scholars, historians, and archivists, dedicated to preserving the knowledge of the past. Their founders, the first knights of the Order, were none other than the prodigal children of the great families, the most important corporations making up the consensus. They had predicted the fall of the corrupt system established by the corporations, a prophecy etched into the very foundations of their order. They preached a doctrine of neutrality, observation, and recording, but never interference. The consensus had once been a beacon of unity, uniting the largest corporations, allowing smaller ones to expand, all bound by trade, diplomacy, and shared governance. But power, like a corrosive acid, had eaten away at its foundations. Greed and ambition grew in the hearts of men, fracturing the once unbreakable bonds between the consensus and its people. The lack of resources, overpopulation, hidden crime, and corruption led the corporations to an intense exploration of the depths of their system. The consensus pushed colonists, at the risk of their lives, further and further into conquering new territories, causing more human losses than all previous conflicts combined. This would later be called the First Incursion. The Second Incursion would be seen as an attempt by the consensus to wipe out all forms of religion or spirituality. This moral repression lasted for almost a century, until the emergence of the Order of Saint Exile and its first knights. They managed to keep their activities secret, waiting for the right moment to make a dramatic appearance in broad daylight, aboard the largest cruiser ever built by man, capable of shaking the entire consensus fleet. This put an end to all corporations' attempts to continue their campaign of behavioral standardization on the population, thus ending the Second Incursion. The Order documented all the horrors committed in the name of profit, recounting the empire's corruption and the rise of tyrants. Faced with such a threat, The Consensus had to unleash its secret weapon, the Titans, cloned and modified humans for combat from the earliest stages of development, almost machines. Their sole purpose was to counter the political, ideological, and military power that the Order was beginning to represent. This triggered a long period of 300 years, swaying between Cold War and relative peace, which was called the Third Incursion. An open war had never been considered by either side. The Consensus could never have confronted the Order directly without significantly weakening itself, even with the support of their new Titan squadrons and combat fighters. As for the Order, there was never any question of secession or taking control of the Empire. Their role was more that of a counterpower, offering the Empire its longest period of peace, although it was paradoxically the longest of the incursions. The Fourth Incursion took everyone by surprise. It was the one of machines, of artificial intelligence, financial algorithms, tactical forecasting software, the entire network. Everything capable of calculating teamed up to create the most terrible threat humanity had ever faced. Only the Titan warriors seemed unaffected. The AI had almost taken control of the entire system. All resources, all communications, all supply routes had been cut off. But thanks to their courage during the famous raid on Terraria, 4 Titan commandos achieved the impossible, saving humanity from total extinction. A mission that would have required enormous human and material sacrifice if it had been carried out conventionally. However, the Empire was already desperately short of resources and fighters, whether from Titan, the Order, the colonies, or the regular army. At this point in the war, everything seemed lost. This true suicide mission was both a desperate attempt, proof of extraordinary courage, but above all, an act of faith, as only humans are capable of. After the Fourth Incursion, social conflicts only grew. The corrupt government of the Empire had to face the discontent of the people. Weakened after so many years of mistakes and disregard for human life, the Consensus and the corporations saw their power rapidly decline. Losing complete control of the most distant colonies, the Consensus then found no other option than brutal and bloody repression. The Titans, heroes of yesterday, became the butchers of today, obeying the corporations. This was the beginning of the Fifth Incursion, which took the form of a civil war between the Consensus and the colonists of the furthest sectors of the Belt. During these troubles, the Order of Saint Exile remained partially neutral, although the Consensus used Titan for bloody repression, massacring civilians who nevertheless continued to rise up in ever-increasing numbers. It was only through diplomacy and the promise of a more equitable society that the Order was able to restore balance and now leads the Imperial Senate. Despite the fall of the Consensus, Titan retained its role of maintaining order in the service of this new government. Aaron studied the complex tapestry of events that led to its downfall, the political machinations, the betrayals, and the insatiable thirst for power. His writings reflected this understanding, a blend of historical accuracy and insightful analysis. He saw the patterns of history repeating, the cyclical nature of power, and the inherent flaws in civilization. Was Professor Borek Vargas a man possessed? A famous astrophysicist and the Grand Chancellor of the Order, he was consumed by one strange obsession, the Veil. This mysterious cosmic event, born from the chaos before the incursions, held him captive in its ghostly grip. He saw it in his dreams, a swirling vortex of energy and light, calling to him with promises of forbidden knowledge. Borek's fascination was almost madness. He spent countless hours in his observatory, his eyes glued to his telescope, studying every flicker and pulse of the Veil. He filled notebooks with equations and diagrams, his mind struggling to understand the cosmic puzzle that took up all his thoughts. Since he was young, the veil was his wild dream, his siren song, and he was determined to unlock its secrets. His obsession ruined his family. His wife had carried the burden of his growing distance before taking her own life, according to the Order's official records. His daughter, Dr. Laura Vargas, a brilliant scientist herself, watched with growing worry as her father drifted away, lost in his pursuit of the veil. Borek's obsession wasn't just about scientific curiosity. He believed the veil held the key to unbelievable power, a power that could reshape the galaxy. He saw it as a source of energy, a weapon, and a way to rewrite the past. His reasons were a mix of ambition, regret, and a desperate desire to leave his mark on the universe. The only one who might understand his reasons could be this young apostle, Aaron Lucas. But to uncover the mysteries of the veil, he will also need his daughter, Dr. Laura Vargas, an exobiologist, and a ship that the Order will not lend him.
My father's obsession with the veil, it's always been a mix of worry and skepticism for me. You know, I'm a practical person. I stick to the scientific method. I rely on data and observation. The veil, to me, is just an anomaly, a fascinating cosmic event, but one that's better studied from a distance. His strong belief in its inherent power? That seems to me to be close to madness. I've dedicated my life to understanding the universe through science. I've spent years studying the colonies spread across the system, focusing on the social layers that affect them. The belt dwellers, those working in the asteroid belts, mining resources for the central planets, they really interest me. Their situation, their fight for recognition and fair treatment, it really moves me. Since I was young, I've watched my father's growing obsession with the veil. I've seen the spark of scientific curiosity turn into a consuming fire, leaving behind only an empty shell of the man I once knew. The pages of my journal are filled with observations of his strange behavior and my useless attempts to bring him back from the edge. Despite my skepticism, a part of me can't help but be drawn to the mystery of the veil. I've seen its strange effects, how it twists time and space, the whispers of energy that seem to come from its heart. Maybe, I dare to think, there's more to my father's obsession than just madness.
Among the Centurions. The Centurions were the lifeblood of the colonies, the unseen hands that kept the wheels of industry turning. They toiled in the darkness of the asteroid belts, digging out precious resources for the central planet. Their lives were a constant struggle against harsh conditions and society's indifference. To the people of Telluria, formerly Mars, the Empire's central planet, they were little more than tools, easily replaced and forgotten. Laura, during her research trips, had spent months living among the Centurions. She had shared their meager meals, listened to their tales of hardship and resilience, and witnessed the cruelty they faced from the corporations that controlled their lives. Her experiences had left a lasting mark on her soul, fueling her desire to fight for a more fair and just society. She saw similarities between the Centurions and the Order of St. Exile. Both were outcasts, for different reasons, of course. They too had their contributions overlooked and undervalued. Both existed in the shadow of the powerful, carrying the weight of knowledge and responsibility without recognition or reward. This was a connection that resonated deeply with Laura, strengthening her resolve to give a voice to the voiceless. The Centurions had a unique understanding of the veil. They saw it as an evil entity, a cosmic scar that marked the galaxy with its pain. They whispered stories of ships lost in its depths, of miners driven crazy by its whispers, of time bending and reality breaking apart at its edges. Their stories, which the central world saw as superstitions, had a ring of truth that Laura couldn't ignore. I bet you didn't know the true horrors of the incursions. I bet you don't know the true horror of the incursions. the echoes of past incursions. The incursions had been a dark chapter in the system's history, a series of devastating conflicts that had shattered the fragile peace the Order and the Consensus had maintained for 300 years. It was an outburst of violence, fueled by ideological differences, territorial disputes, and an insatiable thirst for power. Entire cities and colonies were ravaged, thousands of civilians massacred, and billions of people left homeless on different worlds of the Belt Planets Union. Aaron, in his meticulous research in the Order's archives, had pieced together a fragmented but terrifying picture of the incursions. However, he had read legendary accounts of ancient battles fought with unimaginably powerful weapons, of planets torn apart, and the very fabric of space-time shredded. The Veil, according to these texts, would be the byproduct of cataclysmic events, much older, something dating back to the ancients, a cosmic scar left by the unleashing of unimaginable energies. The Order, during the fifth incursion, had remained firm in its neutrality. They had documented the horrors, recorded the names of the lost, and preserved the stories of a system in flames. Their archives contained survivor testimonies, detailed battle logs, and chilling descriptions of the weapons that had reshaped the very nature of reality. These documents, Aaron believed, held the key to understanding the Veil. He saw a connection between the events of the incursions and the strange properties of the Veil, a link between the unleashed energies of war and the cosmic phenomenon that haunted the galaxy. His research consumed him, pushing him to delve deeper into the Order's archives, searching for answers to questions that had haunted him since childhood. Am I the only one that didn't know the true terror of the unknown? Part 9. A Universe of Unknowing. The vastness of space, once a source of wonder and inspiration, now filled Aaron with a deep unease. The endless stretch of stars, once a testament to the universe's greatness, now seemed like a cold, uncaring void. He felt totally insignificant, a speck of dust drifting in a sea of cosmic indifference. The Order's teachings, once a source of comfort and guidance, now seemed terribly inadequate in the face of the unknown. Their rules of observation and not getting involved sounded hollow against the raw power of the Veil. What good was knowledge, Aaron wondered, if it couldn't protect them from the forces shaping the very fabric of reality? He found himself questioning everything he had always believed, the history he had studied so diligently, the patterns he had found, the very foundations of his understanding of the universe. Everything seemed to crumble in the face of the Veil's mystery. It was a humbling experience, a harsh reminder of the limits of human understanding. The Veil, for Aaron, represented the ultimate unknown. It was a blank spot on the map of human knowledge, a void that threatened to swallow everything he held dear. Yet amidst the fear and uncertainty, he felt a flicker of excitement, a spark of the explorer's spirit, because facing the unknown also held the potential for discovery, for pushing the boundaries of human understanding and venturing into realms never before imagined. Everybody is looking for the edge of the universe. Part 10, Beyond the Threshold. As the ship got closer to the outer edge of the Veil, the universe around them seemed to twist and change. The stars stretched into long lines of light, their colors shifting and blurring. Time itself seemed to bend, with seconds stretching into minutes and minutes into what felt like hours. The ship shook under the strain, its hull groaning in protest as it pushed against the fabric of reality. Aaron, watching his senses, saw the readings jump around wildly, both in awe and fear. The Veil's energy readings were off the charts, jumping around like a crazy song. It was like looking into the heart of a storm, a swirling mess of raw cosmic power that threatened to tear their reality apart. Carl, his eyes shining with a feverish intensity, steered the ship closer to the Veil's swirling vortex. He seemed unaware of the danger, completely lost in his obsession. For the professor, the veil had been the result of his life's work, the answer to all the questions he had about the universe. Sadly, his curiosity would cost him his life. Aaron, clutching his journal, felt a wave of terror and excitement. The world around him dissolved into a kaleidoscope of light and energy, but beyond the fear, he felt a strange sense of peace. It was as if, in the face of such overwhelming power, all his worries and doubts melted away. He was witnessing something truly amazing, a moment that went beyond words and understanding. This time, they were there, behind the veil.